Good afternoon. Welcome to Business, Thanksgiving edition. Ian McLean from the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce joining me alongside Greg DeRocher of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, where they are both presidents of their respective chambers. And happy Thanksgiving, gentlemen.
Same to you, Glenn.
You know, all in all, post-recession, and that seems like such a long time ago now, although we are feeling the latent effects of the economic downturn, but things are getting better gradually with GDP showing signs of growth, unemployment fairly healthy. There is a lot to be thankful for in this country, in this province, and in this region. It came out last week. The vital signs report came out, and there were some areas of concern, but one of the bright lights is our jobless rate and economic growth. We are still far and away outshining the national and provincial unemployment rate averages, and you know, there's been a lot of talk about the resuscitation of research in motion, which people are very hopeful about. But the point has been made consistently by Ian Klugman and the gang at Communitech and others who are watching the local scenario that, you know, there's a vibrancy to this. I'll just talk about the tech sector specifically. That there's a lot more going on than just research in motion.
My point is, it's Thanksgiving, gentlemen, and you know, you can call me a turkey if you want. But I think we have a lot to be thankful for.
I think you're absolutely right, Glenn. I think it's you know, the bright light. I think that was shone a little bit on research in motion this past week. I think is really a good sign. And I know, you know, our tech sector is much more than just research in motion, but you know, they are the one that's kind of that global focal point from our tech sector's perspective. And you know, I think there's no question about it. We're looking for bigger and brighter things, especially the first quarter of the year when they launch their BB10 and the new devices.
We have article in the.
Well, let's get your mic turned on here, Greg.
Yeah.
Or Ian, if you want to just fire your.
Yeah, I think.
Are we on?
Yeah, you're on now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we you know, I was just reading in the record last week. RIM's got its mojo back, and the developers are really starting to be positive about BB10, and so, you know, they've gone through some tough times, but I think they've done what they need to do to turn around their cost structure and be able to come back better and bigger and better in terms of competing in a global environment. And as I mean, Ian Klugman and others in the tech space will say, is it's such a growing part of the market. Everyone's still going to need their devices, but they need the smart devices that RIM is having, and this new platform of BB10. And so when you read this article, there's lots of positive news coming out about RIM, desire to learn.
And you guys have made the point as well. You guys have talked a lot about the manufacturing sector, and there's so much attention given to the tech sector in our community, but the backbone of this community is still manufacturing.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if you guys caught this last week, that there was a couple of auto industry types. I don't know if it was a seminar or some kind of a conference or something, but they came into town They came into town to make the point that they are searching for skilled tradespeople for the auto sector, and they can't find them.
Absolutely.
So that, I mean, on the one hand, yeah, that's a negative that they can't find skilled workers, but on the other hand, it shows that there is still a thriving manufacturing sector, the auto industry specifically. And that is vibrant in this community. And we've got to start training. Not everybody can design computer programming. Not everybody can work in the tech sector.
I think Ian and I have talked about this a long time now, that, you know, we need to really concentrate on that advanced manufacturing sector, because just the proof in the pudding that they can't find people. That means that there are organizations here who want to produce. And we've long said, both Ian and I have both said, we're becoming a society of thinkers and not doers. Yeah. And we really need to go back to that core element of what really built this country and built North America, for that matter, and that's the doer aspect. We need to be doers.
Well, and I think, you know, it's interesting. In another article, I've been cutting out articles just saying we're going to talk about some of the things that we've been doing. Jason Myers from Canadian Manufacturers Exporters writing, Ontario manufacturers can compete and win, and it's exactly what you're just talking about. It's marrying together its advanced manufacturing. It's marrying together the technology that allow our manufacturing sector to compete in a global. So we're not going to compete on widgets with China and India, but we're going to compete on those precision manufacturing.
Absolutely.
And I think what we always try and say is 20% of the local economy is still manufacturing. Advanced food processing, all of those types of precision tool and die making. So we still have a vested interest in making. That's why we passed resolutions last year at the Ontario Chamber saying advanced manufacturing and putting a focus on saying the Ontario government needs to be focused on this, because it's high paying, high skilled jobs, and that's Conestoga College and all the education are coming there is really important.
Okay, speaking of the tech sector, don't we have a guest online right now from the tech sector?
Yes, we do. It's business
a very important guest.
Very important, because this is a business-to-business powered by Allstream, and we are delighted to have them as a sponsor of the program. And we've been featuring Allstream in every one of our shows so that you get to learn more and more about the great work that they do. And we're joined now by Grant Bekoe. Is that right, Grant?
That is right.
And Grant, you're the Director of Voice and IP and Product Strategy for Allstream. Welcome to the program.
Thanks very much for having me on today.
Grant, it's Greg DeRocher, and thanks again. I know it's probably in the middle of your Thanksgiving day, but we really appreciate you taking the time to call in and speak live to our audience. But you're calling specifically on something that was kind of new to me, and I'm kind of one of these techie geeks. But explain to us the SIP.
Sure. We actually refer to it as SIP, believe it or not, and it's a technology that's becoming more and more prevalent in communications, and that is being used by more and more businesses these days. And it's actually a form of voice over IP, if you've heard of that term, which has become certainly much more prevalent over the last few years as well. So SIP it actually stands for Session Initiation Protocol, which is sort of you called yourself a techie. Well, that was from the original definition of what it is, and it's a communications protocol that allows you to use voice or transmit voice communications over data and internet networks.
Wow. Like this, this entire communication package and the technology aspects that we're bringing into business are becoming so critically important. And I think some of the problem, Grant, that we have out here in the business, we're out running our businesses. We're doing the things, we're making our widgets or doing whatever we're supposed to be doing. But this technology stuff is very, very difficult for us to grasp and get hold of. And yet it's probably, if we don't start embracing this stuff, we're going to be left behind. How is SIP going to, or how is Allstream going to be promoting this product and talking about SIP with businesses that they're approaching?
Yeah, you've hit on exactly the kind of conversation I've had with many, many users, and that is just like you say. I'm running my own business. I don't know about, tell me how do I implement this, and tell me what it does for me. So let me give you just a real high-level, sort of a classic example. You may have a business operation with, let's say, for example, an office location and maybe a couple of either manufacturing locations or remote sites, right? Over time, that as a typical business usually has to have some telephone service to it, obviously, right? So the telecom manager or the person who's responsible for that company's infrastructure needs to order up phone service from a provider. And then if you are accessing, say, a centralized email server or other applications, you actually might have to buy some data service, data connections from a provider to allow for that. And then finally, most sites need internet access, and so you may be buying internet as well. So you've got three different kinds of networks that you're paying for every month from a provider or providers in order to make all of that work. And it's not particularly, there's no synergy between the different networks. It's not particularly flexible to add, new sites or, say, remote workers. And so, you've got this kind of behemoth of tangled mess, if you will, of network that you've got to deal with. So where SIP trunking as a service starts to become very beneficial is it allows you to eliminate one of those networks. So you can run that voice traffic, your telephone traffic that you make, long distance calls or local calls, over a data network, and you can literally eliminate that voice network that you were paying for. So one of the big benefits that we talk about right out of the gate with users is, this thing saves you money right out of the chute.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is there any delay then? Like what kind of bandwidth are you going to require then for that data service in order to run voice at the same time?
Yeah, there's usually what happens is when we sit down and look at what the needs are of the voice network, we do some engineering around it together with the user and come up with, here's how much bandwidth is required. And it would actually be, there's some variability depending on how you want to design your service, but it essentially can use the same amount of bandwidth that your telephone service does today. But like I said, it doesn't run on a separate connection or circuit. It runs on the data pipe. So you do a little bit of a bandwidth augment to the data pipe, and now you're running your voice together with your data on the same circuit.
You're listening to Business, powered by Allstream on 570 News. Our guest is Grant Bacowie of Allstream, Director of Voice, IP, and Product Strategy, in conversation with our host on the program, Greg DeRocher, President of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, and Ian McLean, Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce President.
What I find interesting about the conversation, to some extent it can sound complicated, but what you're really talking about is making it more convenient for a business person to get the services they need to have the technology to actually run their business. Because that's what we hear all the time is people are busy, doing their business development, doing their marketing, doing their sales, and just running their operations, and they don't how to put all the pieces together. A puzzle is confusing. So is that what that's what I hear you saying, is the convenience factor of being able to put two of those things together and have one provider solution for a big chunk of your technology needs.
That's right. And there's a number of other things that I can touch on too that sort of extend the productivity and the business flexibility of a business beyond what's possible when you have that sort of mishmash of networks. Let me give you a quick example. The way that SIP trunking operates, it allows you to get access to many different cities, let's say, and telephone numbers from many different cities into one physical location. And what's very interesting about that is that it allows a business to actually project a virtual presence. So you can have a local telephone number and people can call you in a city where you may have no office and no telephone service and no presence at all. So it's a little bit like a virtual storefront, and we've had many users come to us with that challenge. They want to set up shop perhaps in a new community, be able to offer business there and have folks call them as if they're just calling a local business, even though they're not in that city. They may be opening an office, say, in Brantford, and they actually have their office is actually in Waterloo, and the incoming callers have no idea that that's the case. So it really increases their flexibility to be able to open into new areas without necessarily going in with bricks and mortar until the business has grown to a point where it justifies that.
Grant, when and why should a business be considering a SIP trunking alternative?
Well, like I'd said, I think anyone who's operating perhaps multiple networks, they find themselves with voice connections and data connections and internet connections, and are really looking for some efficiency and some cost saving to introduce synergy, really should be looking at a SIP trunking solution as a way to do that. Right. I'd say also anybody who's looking at introducing sort of productivity enhancing features. I know in things like unified communications or the deployment of a remote workforce. Again, SIP trunking is a technology that greatly facilitates that. And I think finally, any business who needs the flexibility and the ability to grow and adapt to changing business conditions needs to look at it, because there's been many that we've talked to for that exact reason. They've looked at their infrastructure and said, "Gosh, I can't grow this," or my business is growing and I need to be able to turn up new sites or bandwidth quickly and readily, or add remote workers quickly and readily, and this helps them do that as well. So, any of those reasons are definitely drivers.
Grant, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate your time this morning, and this afternoon, and happy Thanksgiving to you.
Yeah, thank you as well. Can I add one last final thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Well, just for anybody who's interested in learning more about SIP trunking, we're actually having a live event in London on October 23rd. And if they want to get a little bit more info about that, I've got a number that they can call.
Okay, go ahead.
It's 519-340-0430.
All right, repeat that number again.
Yeah, it's 519 340-0430.
All right. You're listening to Business, powered by Allstream, Canada's all business communications provider, simplifying IT complexity to strengthen your business. In today's world, businesses are faced with the challenges of increased complexity and the rapid pace of technological change. At Allstream, their focus is helping customers simplify their IT operations, and you can check them out at allstream.com. Greg, thank you, or Grant, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, thank you, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
You too, my friend. You too. Okay, Bye-bye. Gentlemen, where are we taking the program now? We're going to talk about the Drummond report, and what else is coming up on the show today?
Well, I think a lot of this is going to be focused on some of the things we've been working on. So the Drummond report, we've talked about arbitration is one of the resolutions that our two chambers have been working on, and we're now seeing that coming up as a heating up as an issue. The Drummond report, now we're focused on wage settlements across the broader public sector, and I think part of what we've been trying to do is say the businesses have had to pull in their horns a little bit and over the last number of years, and government is as well. So I think what we need to see is some action from the government.
It's time for us to call it like it is, and that's the deal, right?
Well, there's talking and then there's doing, and I think what we're seeing is it's going to be an interesting. We'll have a little discussion about where we go from here.
All right, we're coming back with more as Business to Business, powered by Allstream, continues. Webcast at 570news.com. Our producers are Liz Russell and Catherine Drake. We're coming back with more as Business to Business continues on 570 News.
Business to Business, powered by Allstream, a presentation of 570 News. Watch the live video webcast at 570news.com. We'll return with more Business to Business. Not just what you know, it's who you know. Connecting community through business. This is Business to Business on 570 News, powered by Allstream. All local, all relevant, allstream.com. Here's your host, Glenn Pelletier.
Hey, welcome back to Business. I am joined, as always, by Ian McLean. He is the president of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce, and Greg DeRocher of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. And, gentlemen, you guys have been talking off and on since we launched the program about the role that chambers of commerce play in their communities, both locally and provincially and on a national level. We were delighted to talk to Perrin Beatty a couple of weeks ago to give the Canadian the national perspective on chambers. They really are, I guess I would say, advocates for business, and they do everything in their power to promote business and allow business to thrive. Clearly, there's more to it than that.
Well, I think I think there's a misnomer out there that organizations or businesses are maybe members of specific associations. The Engineers Association, the accountants have their own, lawyers have their own, even retailers have their own. But the Chamber of Commerce is really, or the boards of trade, are really the only organization that advocates across the entire platform of commerce. Thus, we're called the Chamber of Commerce. We fight for better legislation and public policy around business, whether you're a variety store or whether you're a large manufacturer. And those are the things I think that make a Chamber of Commerce a more vital community organization, is because we're really advocating across that platform. As well, Ian, and you would concur with this, I'm sure too, is we even advocate for the social fabric of our community. We have members, both organizations, the KW Chamber and the Cambridge Chamber have organizations and nonprofits and charitable organizations that are members of ours, and we help them through some hurdles as well, whether that be local, provincial, or federal issues that they have difficulty with. But and advocacy is just that one. That's maybe that higher level that we don't raise our flag too much on it because we don't need to. We're continually plugging for that better business climate, but there's a million other reasons why businesses should be a member of their local Chamber of Commerce or Board of Trade.
Yeah, what I found interesting, last year was our 125th anniversary as a chamber, and when you go through, and we sometimes call them different things, but what we provide is an opportunity for business-to-business networking to try and grow their own businesses, advocacy that you talked about, and that's important. Education and understanding for business of what they need to know to be successful. And the other is that we're doing more and more in both our chambers is member rewards. How do you actually take advantage of the 1,800 members and 1,900 members that you have, that we have group buying power and say we're going to save you money on employee benefits or gas cards or your credit card. Those are really practical things, especially for small and medium-sized business. So, and I think it's important that for our chamber, our tagline, which you live, but we actually put it on is business building community. Because we know, and our businesses know, that we're more successful when the entire community is successful. So when the not-for-profits are more secure, when the education institutions are getting what they need, because it's all part of our, as you call, the fabric of our community. So there's lots of reasons, and a couple of things that you're right. Saving our members money and giving them the opportunity to network amongst each other are probably the two most important things we do for our members. We talk a lot about the important higher level things, whether it's free trade or the Drummond Report, and that's what we need to do because they want us to be talking about the things that are important to them. But on a day-to-day basis, what we actually do, and you've had a busy start to the fall just like we have, with events, educational opportunities, but these member awards. In fact, maybe you should talk a little bit about, as one example, the opportunity of our travel program, where we're allowing businesses to go and say, I'm thinking I might need to do business because it's a global world. I think I need to see what China's all about, but I'm scared. I don't know how to get started, and I can't spend a lot of money. So,
well, Ian, great partnership with the Greater KW Chamber and the Cambridge Chamber. We sent 128 people from our region over to China for $2,300 all in. That's hotel, flight, and you can't get that buying power. We sent out. My favorite is to say I sent out my guinea pig, Terry Kratz. Well, he kind of does that for both chambers and experiences these trips that are available for chambers of commerce because, you're always a little cautious, $2,300 to go to China all in. I was a little bit worried, frankly, as to where you'd be sleeping and what you would be eating. But he came back and said this is a $6,000 or $7,000 trip.
Absolutely, and Lester, who from my office went, because I said, we need to be able to have.
And Lester's hard to please.
He is hard to please. He's absolutely hard to please.
Give me an example of the kinds of people that would go on a trip like this.
Well, it's a combination. It's small business people. Some of them are others that would be retired or semi-retired. But what they're doing is they're coming back and saying, hey, what a great value that the chamber's putting on the table. So if somebody is going and saying, we almost call it a business vacation. Yeah. You still get to go. He came and had pictures of the Great Wall, but you get to see what the business environment's like, what the dynamic in the
you learn about the culture.
And say, if I'm going to do business, I've now got a feeling for who I need to contact, how to make use of the government resources. We have Laurier's got offices, U of W's got offices, but the Canadian government, the Foreign Affairs, international trade, they can all be helpful for people, especially small and medium-sized business who need to compete on that global basis.
And maybe even if you're afraid of competing with them, you need to understand that culture and know the business climate to say, what am I afraid of? What in particular should I be afraid of? And, I think most people come back, at least many of the ones that I talked to that came back, and they said, my goodness, they're a pretty aggressive capitalistic society in China.
Yeah. And, a couple of the other events, and this is coming, it'll be next spring, but LeaderCast is another example of where we marry education, where we had 250 people last year. We expect 500 people with great international speakers in a sort of satellite day of leadership and knowledge for leaders in business, small, medium, and large-sized businesses. But it's also a great networking opportunity.
Absolutely.
Getting together with 500 people this coming spring from across the business community, that's what we do. We bring business together and we say, here's the opportunity for us to support each other and to support our local economy.
I always like to say people like to do business with people they know and trust. In order for you to get to know and trust someone, you have to socialize with them, you have to interact with them, you have to communicate with them. And the Chambers of Commerce, it doesn't matter where you are, or boards of trade, they offer numerous outlets for doing that each and every year. We have a wonderful one coming up in November the 14th, our 2012 Business Expo with the Guelph Chamber, Greater KW Chamber, the Cambridge Chamber. We'll have, 2,000 business people coming together in the region and learning about each other and developing relationships, and then that creates an economy within itself. The Chambers of Commerce can build a local economy, and I think, quite frankly, the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce, the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, are the two largest chambers in the province of Ontario.
Yeah, and I don't think people get that. Know that.
No, they don't know that. And I think another thing they don't understand is they don't understand that collectively, we have nearly 4,000 members collectively, and they're creating an economy within themselves because they're buying and selling and distributing, and they're recommending products or services that they have to others as well. And I think it's...
And the business expo that we're doing is really going to be exciting, is we're sort of changing this around a little bit and saying we're going to put more of that, some education in there, because we're going to have some focus on what do you need to know about social media? What do you need to know about ways to grow your business? So we're going to have some education, opportunity for that networking and social, and as you say, getting to know one another and building that local business.
We have a Microsoft representative coming in to talk about cloud computing. Businesses, we've talked a little bit about that with Allstream, our major title sponsor for the show, and talked about the importance of getting into cloud computing because business owners are busy doing their widgets and doing their marketing and doing all those things. They don't have time to worry about their server aspects. They just need that connection to the software that's available now in the cloud.
So much to talk about. We'll talk about some of the events that you guys both have coming up at your respective chambers. But if you can remember a couple of things, and that's just the websites. They've got everything in there. They've designed some great websites. The Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber's website is simply greaterkwchamber.com. That's greaterkwchamber.com. And the Cambridge Chamber, also very easy to remember, it's cambridgechamber.com. cambridgechamber.com for more information. Okay, we're going to come back with more with our hosts, Ian McLean. He is the president of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce, and Greg DeRocher. Yes, that same Greg DeRocher, president of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. What's interesting about you guys, and those that follow local politics are aware, both former city councilors.
Don't hold that against us.
No, please.
And have now taken their expertise into promoting their respective chambers of commerce.
We got sick of politics.
We are coming back with more. This is Business to Business, powered by Allstream on 570 News.
We'll be right back with more Business to Business, powered by Allstream. Call in with your questions at star 570, 570-2545, or 1-800-570-5715. No, it's who you know. Connecting community through business. This is Business to Business on 570 News. Powered by Allstream. All local, all relevant. Allstream.com. Here's your host, Glenn Pelletier.
Welcome back to Business, and on behalf of Ian and Greg, happy Thanksgiving. We have a lot to be thankful for in this country,
sure do,
in this community, and I would say, especially in this community, we have fared extremely well. Notwithstanding a lot of the pain and suffering that is out there, and we see it every day, but there's a lot of positives to talk about. All things.
We could call it good luck, but I think it's more good management.
Let me ask you this: from your perspective as chamber presidents, what are you most thankful for, looking back on 2012?
Well, I mean, to start off, I keep repeating because I don't think that we do. The community as a whole understands. We are so lucky and fortunate as a community to have a broad-based economy.
No question.
And I think this is something where you talked. We had some real tough times, especially in the auto sector and the support companies around auto. But we came through that the other side because we have 20% manufacturing, because we're a financial center with all the major banks being a hub here, with the insurance companies, tech obviously. But we have the healthcare sector here. We've got our educational institutions. So we're not a one-trick pony by any stretch. And it's whether it's Kitchener-Waterloo, whether it's Cambridge, whether it's our townships. We have agriculture. Didn't even talk about agriculture. Still another 20% of our local economy. So what I'm thankful for, because we hear this when we go to the Ontario Chamber of Commerce and talk to our colleagues or the Canadian Chamber, that we are blessed. We're not a Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, but we've got all of the benefits of being a really large community.
And I think what it does give us, the diversity of our economy, is really given us stability through these tough times. And you get certain sectors that have trouble in tough economic times, but other sectors do better and outperform. And I think we've got a great cross section of those entrepreneurs and businesses in our region.
When I was doing some research on our chamber, but I think it carries through to Guelph and Cambridge as well. and I looked at the history of our 125 years. Started as an agricultural community, and then we went into textiles, and then you're the button capital of the world, and the rubber factory when you had Uniroyal and those. Now we're into, and then we were in insurance. Now we're into technology. So we've constantly reinvented ourselves, and the nice thing is it wasn't boom or bust. Many of those elements of our economy are still there, but we've latched on. And technology is the one now, but advanced manufacturing, I think, is gaining steam. We're finding.
On that note, I'm sure you're aware, gentlemen, it was a big story that we broadcast on 570 News last week and the week before. Young entrepreneur came in and had a plan to convert the old Budd Automotive plant, the Kitchener Frame plant, into retail. Mm-hmm. And Mayor Zare, looking forward, said, you know what, hold on now. We're going to keep this industrial. We're going to keep this commercially zoned because we are confident enough that property will once again be used for some form of manufacturing. Mm-hmm. I think that bodes well. I mean, the easy thing to do would have been, open up a giant supermarket and a big box and have those 1,000 retail jobs. But the greater vision is, and obviously he's got some information, or at least he's confident that property can once again be resurrected for manufacturing.
Well, and kudos to Mayor Zare, because most politicians, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute too, but they don't. They take the easy path out, right? The easy path is, oh man, I got this great big piece of property. I don't want this derelict building on it anymore. Great. Let's just put something in there to make it look useful. And we need politicians at every level to understand that manufacturing is critically important to our communities. Yeah. And there's always a sector of society that's not going to be developing the next new app for their BlackBerry or whatever it happens to be, or the next new, ingenious technology to take us somewhere else.
And Mayor Zare has gone on record. He is quite confident, as is Mr. Sealing and a host of others, that when this LRT is finally up and running, businesses will be falling over each other to try and get in on the ground floor in our community to set up business. The Bright Up block. Look at the people lining up to get into the Bright Up block as tenants. There's an exciting future happening in this community, and I think I can't speak for Mr. Zare, but I know his vision for the community is very progressive. Yeah. And
I think what we need to understand about, in particular, the Budd situation is, good planning doesn't always make for immediate answers. And when you say, we need to have land set aside for medium density housing and low rise residential, but also apartments to support the LRT. We also need big blocks of property. So the Bright Up block or the hub, those are great for those smaller, IT and intellectual companies. But we also need to have space for that next advanced manufacturer, a Grand River Poultry or others that are going to come and say, hey, we still have high-skilled, high-paying, high-quality manufacturing jobs, and we need to have space for them. Mm-hmm. And that means, planning, and this is, I don't want to get too arcane, but I always thought when I was a politician, or a local politician, that the planning documents, they're blunt instruments. They're not precision. They have to lay out a longer term, saying, we want to have some of those types of, so that we're not just thinkers. That's important with our university, but we also need to have those doers and those manufacturers. We need to have space for them. And that's one of the reasons that we're working with Canada's Technology Triangle, with the region, with the local municipalities to say, where are we bringing on those local lands that are shovel ready and ready for that next company that's going to bring some of those jobs. Because what we just talked about it, one of the reasons we're successful is because we have that mix of business and sectors across this region. And we're so fortunate to have that, but we need to keep planning for that. That doesn't mean that we're always going to agree with local politicians or the way the plans come off, but that's part of our role, is to say let's strike that balance between good community planning and meeting the needs of business, and I think that's a role that we've constructed.
And I understand that. I understand that can happen with politicians when they see the exodus through, whatever reasons, to Mexico or India or China, whatever it happens to be. But the fact of the matter is we do have the brains and the skills here, and we can create them. We've got stellar universities and incredible colleges that are creating.
And our communities have always reinvented themselves.
Absolutely. And we need to not give up on that kind of stuff. We need to actually start planning ahead and pushing forward and trying to attract. We've got the best tax laws in the world for manufacturers.
Right, we're going to take a break and come back and talk a little bit about the Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement, The 25th anniversary of its deal being reached was this week, and Ian's father Walter was among those involved in the discussions with then Prime Minister Mulroney. We're going to come back and take a look back and get your assessment on the free trade agreement, because there isn't universal consensus on it, although the general consensus is it was a damn good thing, and Mr. Mulroney should be applauded for it. We're going to come back with more when Business to Business, powered by Allstream, continues.
Business to Business, powered by Allstream, a presentation of 570 News. Watch the live video webcast at 570news.com. We'll return with more Business to Business. No, it's who you know, connecting community through business. This is Business to Business on 570 News, powered by Allstream. All local, all relevant, allstream.com. Here's your host, Glenn Pelletier.
Welcome back. Yes, indeed, powered by Allstream, also being web streamed at 570news.com under the technical guidance of Catherine Drake, and our producer is Liz Russell. Did I get those backwards, or I got that right? Okay. So Catherine Drake, you know what? To me, they look like sisters. I always get them mixed up.
They're doing a great job.
Yes, Catherine Drake is back in the video room, right? Web streaming it. Liz Russell is the one we're seeing right now. She's our producer, so thank you to both of them. You're listening to Business, powered by Allstream. I'm Glenn Pelletier. Happy Thanksgiving. Here with Greg DeRocher, president of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, and Ian McLean. He is the president of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce. And we want to go back to October 4th, 1987. We acknowledge the 25th anniversary this week of the Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement. Brian Mulroney began talking about it during the 84 campaign, went on to win a majority, and the election of 88 was basically fought on his record on free trade, and he went to the people and said, this is a good deal for Canada, this is a good deal for our industrial sector, and it's a good deal for the Canadian economy. I stand by it. You, the people, will decide. And John Turner fought tooth and nail against it, invoking nationalism and protectionism, and accusing Mr. Mulroney of selling out. I remember that classic debate in '88 in which he wagged his finger at Mr. Mulroney and said, once these areas of self-determination fall, the rest will follow. And he was basically implying that it wouldn't be a very long while before the Americanization of Canada took place. And he actually went into that debate leading in the polls. He came out of the debate buoyed by his performance, but then Mr. Mulroney campaigned hard for free trade. Yep. And the rest is history.
I still remember
majority government.
I still remember that campaign. Obviously, it was our family. My dad was running for the Conservatives, and it was a tough election. There was a lot of hard feelings, but I think on balance, when you read Kevin Lynch had who was the clerk of the Privy Council and now with BMO Bank of Montreal, writing about 25 years after the FTA, Canada faces new challenges, but on balance, free trade, North American free trade, nothing's perfect. But we're a trading nation, always have been, and I think we always need to be. We're in a global market, or global markets now, and I think what's interesting is that I think on balance, I think it's been acknowledged that free trade has helped us with all the things we talked about, to buffer ourselves from being from a lot of the global economic downturn, and now we're talking about some new challenges. Are we negotiating with South Korea? South America, how are we opening up new markets for people? And this is part of the reasons why we go back to our travel program. When we talk about free trade and we say our businesses need to compete on a global basis, this is where the rubber hits the road. That's why we've got the China trip. But next year, Greg, we've got
next week I'll be going to Centralia, which is really about that as well, about connecting Canadian businesses with foreign owned companies and trying to do some business, because I look back, I can remember that election, that 88 election, very, very clearly, and I certainly was a strong supporter of free trade at the time, and I think maybe because I am that techie geeky guy that we talked about before, that look what technology has done to create this global economy. And had we not been a major player through that in creating the free trade agreement and talking about free trading on a global basis throughout those years, where would we be? Well, we might be that.
Well, when a country of 35 million can enter a free trade agreement
with a market of 300 million, I think it's a pretty darn good deal. When
Well,
you can
but
enter,
you can
when you can
understand
enter into a
question.
free trade agreement with the economic superpower of the world, that's a pretty darn good deal.
But I think you can also understand. I mean, to be fair, I mean that has some consequences. Like when the elephant catches a cold, you're gonna catch it as well. But I mean, we talk about the European trying to have a free trade agreement with the euro. South Korea, South America, that's the future, and that's looking forward and saying, we have to be out there in the global framework, and so I think it's important for us, and this is where we try and take that high level advocacy of saying what's important, how do we protect our interests for business, but how do we also acknowledge that we have to be out there, and how we do this for smaller businesses is to say, with our trips abroad and other things, how do you participate in that global economy?
All right, so free trade 25th anniversary this week.
That's just awesome. It's a good celebration to have. But you know what?
We got about 3 minutes to go. So go ahead.
Well, that takes us into the last little bit that we want to talk about very, very quickly. Obviously, we don't have as much time as we'd like to. But, the fact that our governments need to get their houses in order. And I think, we look at the recommendations from the Drummond report. I don't think much of it has been adopted at this point or implemented. And
gentlemen, what do you make of?
I think.
What do you make of the premier clamping down on public sector wages? I mean, isn't he ostensibly trying to get the house in order?
You have to.
So what do you think of it? What do you think of that sweeping legislation?
I think what we've said is, or certainly our two chambers, is the Drummond report was a comprehensive look at how you re-engineer government, and part of that would be, and we may not agree with all of it, but how do you get the arbitration system? And for those to argue that it's not broken, I think is folly. It needs to be reformed. Wage restraint, that's what he's talking about in the broader public sector, needs to be done. Absolutely needs to be done, but it's not in isolation. At the end of the day, you're in a minority situation in Queen's Park, so I'm not filled with confidence that there's going to be a good resolution, which ultimately business needs stability on our fiscal deficits and those sorts of things, because the real tough work, frankly, is the re-engineering of government. How do we provide the services that business and individuals expect? How do we be able to pay for it? And how are we going to make sure that it's there in the future? And that re-engineering.
Final word to Greg.
I think part of it has been the political unrest at Queen's Park. We don't have a majority government. We got a minority government. Everybody's trying to appease someone else to get the votes. The fact of the matter is, politicians today have to go into government saying, I have one specific and my only purpose for being there is a fiduciary one. They are supposed to be stewards of the public funds. We are spending more than we're taking in. You got to cut costs. You might not like the way it's done. You might not have liked all of Drummond's report. I didn't like them all, but I thought they should have adopted all 362 recommendations and said, this is what we have to do, because Glenn and Ian, in your own households, if times get tough and you're spending more money than you're bringing in, you got to cut. And some of those things you're not going to
cut. To coin a phrase, it sounds like common sense to me.
But that's what our businesses have been doing, and that's what they expect of government, and I think we need to get there. And somehow I hope sanity prevails in Queen's Park, and we get through some of these.
All right, we have to go. Guys, this hour just flew by. Again, get to their websites. They've got all kinds of events coming up. If you're a business owner, you want to know about them. Greater KW Chamber.com and CambridgeChamber.com. You've been listening to Business, powered by Allstream. Thanks to our producers, Liz Russell and Catherine Drake. News is next at 1. Thank you very much for listening.